We are already in a week 10 of fantasy hockey, and for this upcoming week, these games are pretty sporadic in terms of this weekly schedule. We don't really have 3 heavy days, but I'll touch on that a little bit in the best schedule for this week. A lot of things happening throughout the NHL, a lot of shifting in terms of player movement and stuff like that, up and down lineups. With that being said, guys, let's get right into the video. This is your week 10 preview and best streamer options. All right, starting off looking at the best schedule for this week. Like I mentioned earlier, just in the intro there are only a couple of heavy games this week. It's the Tuesday, December 12th, where there's 10 games being played, and then it's the Saturday, December 16th, where there are 13 games being played. Every single other day is 8 or less games, so you're going to get to all of your main players for the majority of the week. But that being said, these are the 10 teams that play at least 4 games. The Sabres, the Avs, and the Islanders have the best schedule for this week, and then we've got the Coyotes, the Canes, and the Sens, who have 4 games and 2 off nights. And then we have a handful of teams that only play on 1 off night, but still get 4 games, so they are viable streaming options if you need them. But we definitely want to focus on the 6 teams above them. And as you can see on the 3 teams that have 3 off nights, these are very heavy front-loaded teams in terms of fantasy hockey and ownership, so it's going to be difficult to get to some of their better players, but we will touch on that in a bit. The worst schedule for this week, the busy nights are December 12th, 14th, and 16th. Like I mentioned earlier, it's only the 12th and the 16th that have 10 or more games being played. The 14th has 8, which is, still technically a busy night comparative to the rest of the week, but it's not as extreme as you'd think, so that's okay. But there are 4 teams that only play 2 games this week: the Columbus Blue Jackets, Minnesota Wild, LA Kings, Montreal Canadiens. We want to avoid these teams as much as possible when it comes to streaming players for the week. And then if you have players or multiple players on this team, like say, for example, you have Matt Boldy, Crow Kaprizov, you definitely want to look to try and pick up a streamer for this week, somebody that at least is going to get you 4 games. Same with the Kings, right? Like you could have Kopitar Kempe, for example, or even Montreal if you have a stack of Suzuki and Caulfield. Again, we want to make sure that we are capitalizing as many games as possible for this upcoming week of fantasy hockey. Moving on to our forwards, even though Vladimir Tarasenko and the Ottawa Senators don't have the best week in terms of schedule, I still think he's a really good option. He's really elevated his game as of late in terms of his production. He's always going to get you a ton of shots and has been chipping in quite a bit in terms of hits as well. So I think Tarasenko is a great option. Playing line 2 with Tim Stützle, that's a really, really good kind of pair to have. And then he's getting power play 2 time as well. I definitely think that there are better options in terms of schedule, but in terms of players that are under 50% owned, I think Tarasenko should be my number 1 player that I'm trying to pick up for this week. You could also just leave him till the latter half of your week, and it's a little bit risky because he's 48% owned, but if you can get him as a second half of the week streamer on the 15th and the 17th, that would really help you guys. Moving on to Lawson Crouse, again, he's been scoring a ton. It's difficult to kind of say like, oh, is his goal scoring going to continue, because it has for the last couple weeks. But I think in terms of shot volume and hit volume, Crouse is a really, really good player to have. So if you guys count those 2 categories in your leagues, I highly recommend grabbing Crouse. You get him for 2 off nights. Arizona kind of has a weird schedule, given the fact that you have 1 off night, then 1 busy night, then 1 off night, then 1 busy night. But again, like Crouse is a really good option. Line 2, power play 2. Nick Schmaltz, I think, is going to get you more scoring upside than Crouse, for example, playing line 1 and power play 1, again on that top line with Clayton Keller. Again, the schedule's not great, but with Schmaltz, I think he's going to get you more scoring upside than Crouse so far, even though Crouse is probably going to get you more peripherals in terms of shots and hits. So pick whichever one you think would benefit you more, whether you want the peripherals or whether you want the more scoring upside. And then JJ Peterka has been great. We've mentioned him multiple times now in must-add videos. He's been fantastic. Buffalo has one of the best schedules for this week. 29% owned, line 2, power play 2. He's been lights out. Great shot volume on him as well. So if Peterka's available, I highly recommend you grab him for this upcoming week. Moving on to week 10 of some deeper forward streams, we have Josh Norris at 28% owned, line 1, power play 1. Again, really good option if you can grab this guy in the second half of the week when he has 2 off nights. I think at 28% owned, I know he hasn't been great, and he hasn't really had the season we expected out of Norris, but in terms of his shot and hit volume, it's still really good. So I highly recommend grabbing Norris, especially in the latter half of the week. And then Casey Middlestat, again, was in a must-add video for us recently. really, really good player, playing that top line with Tage Thompson, getting great exposure on line one and power play one. He had a 60-point season last year. He's going to continue. And the fact that Buffalo has one of the best schedules for this week, I highly suggest picking up Casey Middlestat if you need a centerman. Logan Cooley, I think, is going to add two things. He's going to get you points and he's going to get you power play points. His shot volume's kind of fluctuating a little bit right now. Doesn't really add too much in terms of the hit volume. He'll chip in a couple hits here and there, but he's primarily there just for scoring upside at a lower percentage ownership. If you can't get to a guy like Nick Schmaltz, I think Cooley's one of the better guys to have, especially if you need power play points for the week. Kyle Palmieri for the Islanders has really, really good shot volume, and again, decent enough production for a player that's 5% owned. He's playing line 2 and power play 1, so again, really, really good upside. Great schedule for the week, the same off nights as the Buffalo Sabres, so you get him for 3 off nights. Really good option in my opinion, especially if you're in deeper leagues. And then Zach Benson is just there for the schedule. Line 2, power play 2 for Benson so far. He's playing with Dylan Cousins, who I know has had a slow start. Also wasn't included in this video because of that reason. But for Benson, I think he just adds more scoring and power play upside, similar to Kyle Palmieri. He's probably not going to get you as much in terms of peripherals, so I would lean more towards Palmieri if you're able to. But Benson is just there for the upside and the schedule. Moving on to defenseman, Jake Sanderson is absolutely a fantastic player to have rostered on your team. He's less than 60% owned, so if you're in like a 10 or 8-man league and you don't have this guy rostered, I highly recommend just picking him up in general. He's power play 1 and line 1. You probably can't get to this guy in most leagues, but I just figured I would include him for those of you that are in some smaller leagues. Great option for this week, especially with 4 games and 2 off nights. Owen Power, again, I was kind of wishing a little bit, and this is kind of weird to say, but I was kind of wishing like Dahlin would have been out for a little bit longer so we could see the true potential of Owen Power playing power play 1, but those Dahlin owners are going to be mad at me in the comments. But I like Owen Power again for this week because of the schedule. He actually gets you a ton of blocks as well, shots, and he's got some point upside. He's had a pretty good season in terms of his production, but again, shot volume, block volume, and some point upside, plus a great schedule. He should be one of the best streamers for this week in terms of defensemen. Bowen Byram is going to get you a ton of hits. I know the scoring upside hasn't been there for Byram like we expected this year. He's kind of, again, taken a third seat there to Devin Taves and Cale Makar, obviously. And the schedule is, again, a little bit wonky because you get him for 1 off night, 1 off night, or 1 busy night, 1 off night, 1 busy night in that order. But for Byram, again, he's going to add some upside as well, being on that power play 2. He plays pair 2. He plays a ton of minutes. He's going to get you a ton of hits. I think he's a solid streaming option, just given the schedule. And Matthias Samuelsson is absolutely fantastic in terms of peripheral stats, shots, hits, blocks. The shots really aren't too crazy, but his hits and block volume are very, very good. So if you need a peripherals defenseman, highly recommend Matthias Samuelsson. He plays a ton of minutes, gets you a ton of hits, a ton of blocks. And then Scott Mayfield is actually 7th in the National Hockey League right now in terms of block rate, like blocks per game. So he's a fantastic option if you just need a ton of block volume for the week, given his schedule also. Doesn't really get you a ton of hits or shots, but he is an absolute monster when it comes to blocks. So if you guys need some extra blocks going into next week, or your league counts blocks for your scoring categories much higher than hits, highly recommend Scott Mayfield as a depth kind of peripherals defenseman ad for the week. Finally, moving on to our goalie streams, we have Semyon Varlamov. December 16th, he plays the Montreal Canadiens. This is technically a busy night, but at 38% owned, I think this is a good matchup for the Islanders going against the Habs. Akira Schmid, New Jersey continues to split their goaltending situation. I don't know what exactly he's going to get for this week. They have a kind of a weird schedule where they don't play till the middle of the week, and then they have a couple of days off, and then they play kind of in the latter half of the week on the Saturday and the Sunday. So he could get the matchup against Columbus, or he could get the matchup against Anaheim on the off night. But again, I think it's a really good option regardless of whatever matchup he has. He had a really good week last week in terms of his goaltending performance, had like a 40 save performance for the win. He was fantastic. So I highly recommend you grab this guy before his ownership goes even further up. Casey DeSmith, again, he's been fantastic for the Vancouver Canucks. Great option for this week. You get him on the Sunday against Chicago. So if you need a goaltending stream for the Sunday at the end of your week, you're like, I need some extra goalie stats, or I just want to add some more points, Casey DeSmith is a great option. Earlier in the week, you have Alex Nedeljkovic, who's been just as good as DeSmith. Like, they've both been over 9-10 save percentage for their respective teams. Again, a really good option. Get a really good matchup against the Habs on an off night. So Nedeljkovic at 7% owned should be readily available. And then I decided to include Ivan Prospitov, I think I got that right. Again, anytime you match up against San Jose, I think you have a great chance of winning, especially if the Colorado Avalanche, and Prosvetov should be a solid option at 6% owned on the 17th, which is the Sunday against San Jose. That is going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in week 10 of fantasy hockey. I can't believe we're already at week 10. It's absolutely flown by the season already. We're approaching the Christmas break, so hopefully you guys stay safe and happy holidays. We probably take a little bit of time off during the Christmas break. We'll be sure to let you guys know whether it's through YouTube or through our Discord, or probably both at that point, and Twitter. But again, just happy holidays for you guys. Stay safe over the holiday season, and good luck in your week 10 of fantasy hockey. I will see you in the next video. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.